Some cases go cold and never get solved. But behind every silence, there's a story waiting to be told. Welcome to Cold Case Vault. We go deep into the unsolved, the forgotten, and the downright chilling. Let's open the file. The Heir and the Empire.
Welcome to Cold Case Vault. I'm Sam, and today we're diving into a story of wealth, deception, and the darkness that can hide within a family legacy. Nathan Carman was born into privilege. His grandfather, John Chakalos, wasn't just wealthy, he was a real estate empire builder. With over $40 million in assets, Chakalos had developed entire neighborhoods across New England, mostly in Connecticut and Vermont. He was known as generous to his family, donating millions to the church and offering financial support to his 4 daughters, including Linda, Nathan's mother. But what the world saw as generosity was also control. Every gift came with expectations. And for Linda, a single mother struggling to raise Nathan, that control created both dependence and tension. Nathan was described as bright but odd. Diagnosed with Asperger's as a child, he showed signs of social withdrawal, obsession with structure, and difficulty processing emotions. He was homeschooled for much of his life, and by high school it was clear Nathan didn't fit in. Teachers reported outbursts. A neighbor recalled him smashing electronics in the yard. And still, Linda stood by her son. She believed in him, even when others didn't. But something about Nathan was off.
Murder in the Mansion.
December 20th, 2013. A bitterly cold morning in Windsor, Connecticut. John Chakalos, 89 years old, real estate tycoon, philanthropist, and the patriarch of the Chakalos family, is found dead in his own bed. 2 shots to the head. No signs of forced entry, no defensive wounds, no valuables taken. His wallet was untouched. His watch still on his wrist. The sheets barely disturbed. This wasn't a robbery. This was an execution. Police arrived to a scene that was too quiet. No blood spatter outside the bed. No shell casings left behind. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. And when detectives began to unravel the events of the previous night, a name quickly emerged. Nathan Carman. He had dinner with his grandfather that very night. The two reportedly shared roast beef and mashed potatoes, a favorite of John's. Nothing unusual was reported at the time. No arguments, no signs of tension, just a family meal, or so it seemed. Security cameras confirmed Nathan's presence. His dark-colored pickup truck entered the gated community shortly before 8 p.m. He left just after 9 p.m. The timing matched the window when police believed the murder occurred. But what turned heads was this. Just weeks prior, Nathan had purchased a .308 caliber rifle, the same type used in the killing. He claimed it was for target practice, but when questioned after the murder, he told police that the gun had mysteriously gone missing. No break-in, no theft report, just gone. Detectives also discovered something deeply suspicious. Nathan had disabled the GPS tracker in his truck that night. His cell phone was turned off, a detail highly uncharacteristic for him. And when pressed on the exact time he left his grandfather's home, his story kept shifting. Investigators brought him in for questioning. He appeared calm, emotionless, almost rehearsed. But here's the problem. There was no physical evidence, no fingerprints on the scene, no eyewitnesses, no smoking gun. The rifle? Still missing. The surveillance, circumstantial, and the motive, at the time, unclear. So despite the suspicion, and it was heavy, no charges were filed. The case went cold, at least on paper. But those closest to the family began whispering. They saw the tension, the greed, the isolation. One cousin later told reporters, "We knew something wasn't right with Nathan, but no one imagined it would come to this. And while police couldn't arrest him, they never stopped watching him."
I have no idea who killed my grandfather. I know that I did not.
Into the deep.
September 17th, 2016. It was supposed to be a peaceful mother-son fishing trip. Just Nathan and his mother, Linda. No friends, no witnesses, no return date. They launched from a marina in Point Judith, Rhode Island, aboard a 31-foot aluminum fishing boat Nathan had recently purchased secondhand, strangely named Chickenpox. The plan, as Nathan later described it, was simple: an overnight trip to catch tuna. But when the sun rose the next day, there was no sign of chickenpox, no sign of Linda, just open ocean. Then, 8 days later, Nathan was found. A freighter spotted him in a bright orange life raft. He was over 100 miles offshore, drifting alone. The U.S. Coast Guard airlifted him to safety. No physical injuries, no dehydration, no sunburn. Just Nathan, wrapped in a blanket, telling a story that sounded off. According to Nathan, the boat had sunk without warning the night of their trip. He said he last saw his mother near the back of the boat, panicking. He tried to reach her. He failed. She was gone. But investigators began poking holes in his account almost immediately. Why hadn't he used the boat's emergency radio? Why hadn't he fired a distress flare? Why did he wait 8 days before being spotted, yet show no signs of distress? It wasn't just his behavior that raised red flags. It was the boat itself. After a salvage operation located the sunken chickenpox, marine forensic experts were stunned by what they found. The forward bilge pump, a vital piece of equipment that pumps water out of the hull, had been removed. 2 bulkheads had been drilled through, weakening the boat's ability to stay afloat. Fuel lines had been tampered with, making engine failure not only possible, but likely. Safety gear like the EPIRB, emergency position indicating radio beacon, had not been activated, though it was working perfectly when tested. One expert later testified in court, "This boat was not simply neglected, it was deliberately sabotaged. It was engineered to sink." Insurance companies took notice. Nathan had filed a claim for $85,000, the cost of the boat. It was denied due to suspected fraud. And Linda? She was never found. No life jacket, no debris, no remains. The ocean had swallowed any chance of certainty. Nathan maintained his innocence, insisting it was an accident, that he had done everything he could. But investigators, family members, and marine experts saw something far more sinister. One federal agent later said off record, "It wasn't just a sinking. It was a disappearance planned with enough time, space, and water to make sure Linda never came back. And if this was intentional, it wasn't just a tragedy, it was murder hidden in the deep."
I had nothing to do with my mother's death.
The trail of money.
Shortly after his mother's disappearance at sea, Nathan Carman did something that, to investigators, was almost as telling as the trip itself. He filed an $85,000 insurance claim for the lost boat. He claimed the vessel, chickenpox, was seaworthy when they departed. He called the sinking an unfortunate accident, but the insurance company wasn't convinced. After examining the forensic evidence from the recovered wreck, the insurer rejected the claim, citing intentional acts of sabotage and possible foul play. It was the first official crack in Nathan's version of events. But insurance was only the beginning. You see, Nathan had more to gain than just a boat's worth. Linda Carman, though not wealthy on her own, stood to inherit a multi-million-dollar fortune, her share of John Chakalos' real estate empire.
If he had nothing to do with it, what's the harm in testing the gun?
After John's unsolved murder in 2013, the estate, worth over $40 million, had been structured to pass to his 4 daughters. Linda was one of them, but once she vanished at sea, her portion was rerouted to the only heir she left behind, Nathan. And suddenly, a young man who hadn't worked in years, who'd withdrawn from most of his family, was in line to receive millions. That's when the lawsuit started. John Chakalos' surviving daughters, Nathan's aunts, filed legal challenges against him. They sought to freeze the trust, arguing that Nathan had directly or indirectly caused the deaths of both Linda and John. Court filings painted a dark portrait, cold, emotionally detached, and methodical. A young man who viewed his family not as loved ones, but as obstacles to be removed. One cousin alleged that Nathan believed he was destined to inherit everything. Another revealed tense family emails in which Nathan accused relatives of trying to poison his future. Nathan denied it all. In court and in interviews, he maintained that he loved his mother, that he was devastated by her disappearance, and that he had nothing to do with his grandfather's murder. But when you followed the money, the timeline told another story. In 2013, John Chakalos was killed, the family patriarch. In 2016, Linda Carman disappeared, removing another heir. By 2017, Nathan had moved across states, stopped working, and lived modestly off inherited funds. And then, when that money began to dwindle, that's exactly when he reconnected with his mother and suggested the fishing trip. A financial expert hired by the court later said, "The pattern is too clean. He didn't just benefit from these deaths, he seemed to have calculated their timing." The legal battles dragged on for years. Civil courts didn't have enough to prove murder, but they saw enough to stall his access to the full inheritance. Nathan remained locked out of millions until the criminal justice system finally stepped in. But even then, the truth was like the ocean, deep, murky, and willing to hide anything for the right price.
Mind of a suspect.
As the investigation deepened, authorities began to shift focus from Nathan Carman's actions to his mind. He had always stood out. Diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome as a child, Nathan displayed traits that many would describe as socially awkward, emotionally detached, and rigid in thinking. But to those who knew him more intimately, there was something else, something harder to define. He could be intensely logical, but also coldly dismissive. He often struggled with empathy, and his relationships were shallow, if not entirely absent. Was this simply the profile of a misunderstood young man? Or was it a deeper, darker design? Forensic psychologist Dr. Elaine Stamford, who reviewed hundreds of pages of court documents, behavioral reports, and interview footage, stated bluntly, "There's a dangerous misconception that autism is the root of all of Nathan's behaviors. It's not. What we're looking at here is a potential mix: high intelligence, emotional detachment, and an extreme need for control. That doesn't describe every autistic individual, but it does describe Nathan." She pointed to the methodical nature of his actions. The boat, tampered weeks before the trip. The GPS and cell phone disabled on the night of his grandfather's murder. The contradictions in his stories, always just vague enough to avoid perjury. Legal behavioral analyst Martin Rowe, a former FBI consultant, went even further. This wasn't a man acting in chaos. He had a goal: the technical sabotage of the boat. That's not panic, that's planning. The timing of his mother's death, when he was low on money, that's not bad luck, that's motive. Nathan's isolation only amplified the suspicion. He had no real friends, no documented romantic relationships, and few lasting ties. Former neighbors described him as paranoid and frequently confrontational. One landlord claimed he left the apartment in disarray and refused to speak to anyone on the premises. And within his own family, it was worse. He accused his aunts and cousins of sabotaging his future. He claimed the family was trying to cut him out of the will. One cousin told investigators, he believed he was the rightful heir. He said it wasn't greed, it was justice. This sense of entitlement, paired with emotional detachment, painted a chilling psychological profile. Nathan didn't appear to act from rage or desperation, but from a calculated sense of inevitability. In one particularly haunting note found in court records, Nathan wrote to a family member, "I was meant to carry this legacy forward. I won't let anyone stand in the way of that." It wasn't clear when he wrote it, but after the deaths of his grandfather and mother, there was no one left in his way. So again, we're left with the question, was Nathan Carman simply a troubled, socially awkward man trying to survive tragedy? Or was he a silent predator, intelligent, patient, and quietly hunting the life he believed he was owed? The line between mental illness and malice is razor thin. And Nathan? He walked that line until the very end.
Death before justice.
Nearly a decade after the mysterious death of John Chakalos, and 7 years after Linda vanished into the Atlantic, the case against Nathan Carman finally gained momentum. In May 2022, a federal grand jury indicted Nathan on 8 counts, including first-degree murder, fraud related to maritime insurance, intentional homicide with financial motive. The government's case was built meticulously. Hundreds of pages of investigative notes, forensic evidence, and expert testimonies. Prosecutors claim Nathan had engaged in a calculated and premeditated scheme to eliminate both his grandfather and mother to gain access to the family fortune. And this time, they were ready. The trial was set for late 2023. Over 100 witnesses had been subpoenaed, including relatives, boat experts, financial analysts, and Coast Guard officers. Some of the most damning testimony was expected to come from forensic auditors who traced Nathan's spending habits post-disappearance, showing a pattern of lavish but erratic spending, frequent relocations, and isolation. The media dubbed it the inheritance trial. Legal pundits called it the true crime case of the decade. And then it all ended. On the morning of June 15, 2023, Nathan Carman was found unresponsive in his jail cell at the Cheshire County Correctional Facility in Keene, New Hampshire. There was no suicide note, no visible signs of trauma, no reports of foul play. The official statement from authorities? Medical incident pending toxicology. The public? They weren't buying it. FBI profiler Karen Miles, who had followed the case for years, offered this chilling reflection. We always thought the trial would bring closure, but maybe for Nathan, the unknown was power. He never wanted to be cornered. Dying without confession, without facing those questions in court, was the final way to control the narrative. With Nathan's death, the criminal case collapsed. There would be no trial, no verdict, no cross-examinations. But the story didn't end there. In 2025, ABC's 2020 aired a gripping 2-hour special titled Family Lies, featuring never-before-seen interviews, leaked family emails, and exclusive Coast Guard recordings. The special reignited national interest, and around the same time, investigative journalist and author Casey Sherman released a best-selling book, Blood in the Water, a searing exploration into the twisted dynamics of the Carman Chakalos family, the dark psychology of entitlement, and the haunting power of secrets left untold. Though public fascination soared, the central truth remained elusive. Why did Nathan target his own bloodline? If he did he act alone? And what really happened on that boat? Without Nathan alive to testify, cross-examination turned to speculation. As one federal agent reportedly said off the record, "We were closing in." Everything was pointing to him, and then he slipped away, just like before. With his death, justice was denied. And for the families of John and Linda, closure remained just out of reach. So, who was Nathan Carman? A brilliant, broken man crushed under the weight of his upbringing? Or a cold, calculated killer who saw family as expendable? You decide. What we know is this: his mother never returned from the ocean. His grandfather died in silence, and Nathan took the truth with him. This was Boat of Deception, the Nathan Carman Mystery, brought to you by Cold Case Vault. I'm Sam. Thanks for listening. Until next time, not all crimes get solved. Some secrets sink too deep. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. We want to hear your theory. Was Nathan a victim of circumstance or the mastermind behind it all?